I want to welcome all of you to our talk today. Today, we're going to focus on financing your medical school education, and we're going to focus on what it is you need to know about that. I feel like all of us are on the same page and in agreement that financing higher education in general, it's not cheap. Financing a medical school education or any medical professional education is not cheap. So we want to do everything we can in this talk to give you as much information, tools, and resources that we possibly can to help you along this journey. If you've already decided you want to go into med school, great, fantastic. If you're considering it, this should help you as well. So that's the goal of our talk for today. So, just to let you know, my name is Jonathan Chancellor. I'm a senior education debt management specialist working at the Association of American Medical Colleges. I work in the Office of Student Financial Services. One of our big programs we work on is FIRST, and I'll be sure to show all of you a little bit more about that program here a little bit later. I've been with the AAMC for about 3 years. And I've been in financial aid for a very long time. So love it, love what I do, love being able to help students get financial assistance going to school. If it wasn't for financial assistance, grants, loans, scholarships, I wouldn't have been able to go to college. So I just love how I've landed in this role. And that's where I'm hoping I'm going to be able to help all of you with this today. So today, here's what I thought we would touch on. I thought we would talk about application costs. There are a lot of application costs associated with medical school, really any medical profession school that you're going to go into, right? Now, I didn't do that. I just did an undergrad degree. I didn't have all those costs, but there's a lot. There's a lot of things that you have to be aware of. So I want to make sure that all of you are aware of what those costs are. I don't want you to have any hidden fees coming at you. That's what I don't want to happen. I want you to be aware of these things so you can start to plan it out. I'm also going to take some time to make sure all of you are aware of the AAMC's Fee Assistance Program. We're very proud of this program. It has helped countless students be able to cover the cost of all of these applications and these tests. So I'm really going to make sure to drive that home and make sure you have all the information you need on that. We're going to talk about those medical education costs, right? So as a former financial aid administrator, we all know you've got tuition and fees, but there's also a lot of other costs associated with medical school. You got your step exams, you got your study materials, you got your residency interviews. We're going to go through all that because I've already said it once and I'll say it a number of times. I don't want you all to be surprised by any of these costs. These are things you want to start to think about right now. I'm also going to really drive home the importance of applying for financial aid. I am really a huge advocate of making sure we all know how do you apply for financial aid? Where can you get as much free money as you can? How often do you need to do it? You're going to need to know all of that stuff. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure to get you that information. We're also going to touch on student loan availability and borrowing wisely. That is going to be I'm assuming, a pretty big hot topic today because, of course, we've all known that we have a new bill that was just passed, new legislation signed into law by the president that does affect student loans. It affects actually student aid in general across the country. It's one of the biggest changes we've seen in a very long time. So I want to make sure I'm touching on that. And at the end of the talk, I'm going to talk to you about the AAMC FIRST program. I want to make sure all of you know that program is there. It's available now. It's going to be available as a pre-med, med student, resident, and it's completely free. I would kind of be defeating my own purpose if it was something that cost you money. So I'm going to show you where you can find free tools and resources to help you along this journey. So first things first, let's talk about these application costs for medical school. I think the best way to do it is just pop them all right here, right? Just show you what they are. Most of you probably know what these are. You know you've got your MCAT preparation. There might be study materials. You know you've got your MCAT registration. Then, of course, you've got your MSAR, right? This is your medical school admissions requirement. Of course, there's also AMCAS. Now, AMCAS may also mean that there's going to be transcript or letter storage fees. So you want to be aware of that sort of thing. Secondary application fees, that's also something that you might run into. There's your CASPER test. There's also your AAMC preview. That's your professional readiness exam. And then you also want to think about interviews, like the travel, transportation. Now, obviously, with the pandemic, a lot of that moved over to virtual, and that's great. That saves people a lot of money. But I know some schools are kind of going back into in person. And also, when it comes to something like maybe Second Look, As a student who is looking to see which medical school is going to be your best fit, I guarantee you're going to want to see that campus. You're going to want to see what it looks like. How is the layout? Where is it situated in the city, or is it in a more rural area? That's going to cost a lot of money. And look, schools aren't going to pay for that. So you want to start to think about that sort of stuff. Any other deposits that you're going to need to put down for anything? If it's an apartment, some schools might not have dormitories, if you need to put down a deposit for something like that. So just think about those sorts of costs. That's what they are. Start to think about where can you get the monies for this? If you have savings, if you have a way of paying for it, start to look at it and make sure you have enough to get these things covered. One of the things I want to make sure all of you are aware of is our fee assistance program. Now, this is a program that provides financial assistance that will help cover the cost of applying to medical school. As we just saw in the previous slide, plenty of costs that you can get some help with, right? So don't not think about how this could possibly help you. There's a lot of benefits to this program. It can reduce MCAT registration and scheduling fees. There could be free MCAT preparation resources available to you, complimentary access to the MSAR. You could get waivers for your AMCAS fees up to 20 schools that you're going to send that to. There could be discounts for the AAMC preview exam. And there's even a consideration for a stipend that can help all of you with some cost when it comes to any other evaluations or any other accommodations that might be there for you. So here's how the application process works. So it opens in January and closes in December. I kind of laugh when I read that, but it's a fact. But basically, it's there all year, right? So it just depends on what cycle you're actually applying to. Complete and submit an application. I'm kind of going to treat this like I'm going to tell all of you moving forward with the FAFSA here in a little bit. Submit it. It's free. If you get some money, you get some money. If you get $100, great. That's better than nothing. If you get assistance with one fee or one preparation material, that's better than nothing. So make sure you do this. There are automatic and manual reviews. Okay, so based on the way some of your application information is submitted, there is an automatic review process that these applications go through, and there's also a manual process. We have a team that does this at the AAMC. Make sure you upload any required documents. This is, again, very similar to what I'm going to say about financial aid later. If someone asks you for documents that are required to go ahead and move your application forward, make sure you do that. You will get a notification within 5 days, 5 business days, once that application is submitted. That's a pretty quick turnaround. So that also gives you that time where you think, okay, I know what I'm getting. I know if I'm getting assistance or not. And that helps you plan moving forward even faster. So make sure you submit everything you need to for the fee assistance program. There's a lot of ways you can also look at testimonies from other students who have gone through the system who could talk to you about how did this help me? Did I get waived fees? Any assistance? Was there, there was an interview experience that came along with all of this stuff. So you can go to this website right here and see how fee assistance helped. If you want to read some of these testimonies from students who've gone through this process, they're also going to let you know how simple the process is. All right. That's what I really want to stress to all of you. If we're going to try to help offer you some assistance, we don't want to make it something that's going to be difficult. It should be easy. You've got enough on your plate with all the other stuff you got to do, right? You've got other exams, you've got other applications. We know that. So this is going to be something simple for you. This is how you can contact our team. There's a number of different ways of doing it. You could use a phone. You could, and I'm very old school. I love the phone. You could even reach out via email. You could do any of this stuff. So if you have any questions about anything regarding the fee assistance program, you can reach out to the team and they will get with you pretty darn quickly. That's what they're dedicated to do. So this is a great program. Make sure you apply for it. If you have any questions, you reach out to that team. Do not miss any deadlines and don't forget to submit everything that's needed so that you can be reviewed for this program. Now, that's getting into med school, right? That's helping you with the cost of applying to medical school. But there are obviously, once you get there, you got other medical school costs too, right? Now, that's going to be with any higher education program. We know that. But you want to start to think about these costs. Now, here's some numbers for all of you to think about moving forward. These are numbers that are represented. This is data that we collect at the AAMC. So you could see if you want to see what is the median four-year cost of attendance. And we break it down into differences between public and private. Obviously, that's a really big difference, right? The public school versus the private school. But then when you look at the median education debt, it's not that different, right? It just isn't. Now, that would likely say to most of you, private schools do tend to have a little bit more scholarship dollars, right? So when it comes to looking at these numbers, I'm not saying any of you or all of you are going to pay that much. I'm not saying you're going to have that much debt. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying these are the median numbers that we see today. And I just wanted you to be aware of that. Because listen, 70% of medical school students, actually 71 this year, are going to graduated with some sort of education debt. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not doing anything wrong, but you just want to be aware of those numbers. You don't want that. You don't want your expenses and costs to be a surprise, but you also don't want your debt to be a surprise. We're going to talk about that here moving forward in a little bit too, just staying on top of that. But I wanted to provide these numbers for all of you so that you know what they are. Obviously, if you have any questions about any other data or numbers like that, you can always reach out to us. So your program has cost to it. We all know we're paying tuition and fees. We're all going to have to have somewhere to live. We know we have room and board. And we have exams, we have books and study materials, we have miscellaneous cost, right? But here's the thing, and here's what's really beneficial. Every medical school, every actual higher education program has to publish its cost of attendance. So every medical school you're looking at on, usually it's the financial aid website, you're going to see a breakdown of all of these numbers. What do they estimate all of these things are going to cost? And that's what you're going to want to start to look at. You're going to want to start to think, okay, these are, let's say, my top 5 schools. And if one of them's the cost just seems really exorbitant, you're going to want to think about that when you do the financial aid application process. You're going to want to start to compare what am I getting in financial assistance versus what I might have to come up with out of my own pocket. What are these costs? Do I think that's worth the education? That's something you want to decide here, right? You're looking to become a physician. It's up to you to choose the best path for you. Obviously, you want to focus on where you can get the best education. We know that. But hey, finances are a part of life. So these are things you want to consider. All of those numbers are on the school's website. So you can all look at them. They're out in the open and they're published. So make sure you're looking at that. That's when after you start this process and you get further into it, you want to make sure you're applying for financial aid at these medical schools. So obviously, some of you are going to get acceptances to numerous medical schools, and that's fantastic. But you know what? Even if it's one medical school, you want to apply for financial aid at that school. You are going to want to make sure that you are submitting every single application this school wants you to submit. That could change from school to school. I can tell you right now, in my career, I've worked at 3 higher education institutions. The financial aid process is completely different at all of them. Now, all of them are going to want a FAFSA. I can go ahead and tell you that right now. I'm going to tell all of you to do a FAFSA. It's free, it's quick, it's easy. Get a FAFSA on file. But some schools might also want a CSS profile. They might also have their own institutional application that you need to apply for. Now, I'm going to direct you to the same place I did about that cost of attendance and those fees. Go to the financial aid office's website. They're going to list out all of the applications, everything you need to do in order to apply for financial aid. Okay. Once you are in this process, once you've really gotten into this application process, they're going to send you some emails. Do not ignore these emails. If the financial aid office at that school needs another document, if they need to see some tax documents, maybe you left something blank in one of the applications, they're there to help you get that done. Don't miss out on a lot of good money just because you didn't read an email or submit something, okay? And you can hear the financial aid administrator in me coming out right now. Don't do that, okay? I promise you, we are there to help you get money. That's our jobs. That's what we want to do. So make sure you're focusing on the aid process. And by all means, don't miss out on money because you miss a deadline. All of these things are online. FAFSA, CSS, every institutional application is online. Sit down and do it. Do not miss out on monies because you didn't get something done. And when I say deadlines, folks, If the deadline has a date, do not wait until 11 p.m. that night before. Put it on your calendar and get it done. Don't miss out on money because of that. Once you get that aid package, I also think it's really important for all of you to sit down and look at your financial aid package because this is going to give you the numbers that's going to tell you this is how much money I'm getting to help me cover the cost of the medical school I'm going to go to. Was it grants? Was it scholarships, work study, loans, whatever it was? You're going to want to know what that money is. Is it free money? What do I need to do to keep that money? Is it loans? Is it work study? How do I obtain those funds? So sit down and look at that aid package, okay? Now, outside of the school itself, there are a lot of other outside scholarships that all of you can apply for. They're competitive. Let's be honest about this, right? They're competitive, they're nationwide. There's going to be thousands of students apply for them. But don't you dare think that your application and you are not as capable of getting one of these scholarships as anyone else. Go out there and apply for scholarships. This is free money, okay? Now, when you're going out here for these scholarships, obviously be careful with them. It's all online. Make sure everything's legitimate. I can give you one big solid piece of advice. There is no scholarship that you're going to apply for that in any way needs your social security number. Okay? It's just not necessary. Why would they need that to determine your eligibility for a scholarship? Go out there and look at them. If you have questions about the legitimacy of a certain scholarship, you can email us at the AAMC. You can email the financial aid office at your schools. They're happy to help out and do some legwork for you. So be safe about it, but also explore it. Apply for scholarships, get some money. Do what you can to help cover these costs. There's also other programs you could all look into that can help you sort of get your feet wet, right? If you want to think about getting into the medical school profession, there's a summer program for pre-med students you could look at. The application is going to open here in a few weeks. This is something that is a program that's basically paid for if you get into it, right? They cover your food, they cover your lodging, they cover all of these things. Now, go out there and check out the website. Look at what the eligibility criteria are. Look what all it includes. Like I said, housing, meals, you even get a stipend. You get guidance from current administrators, health professionals. It's a great program if you have the time to do it, right? It is a 6-week summer program. So you're looking at about a month and a half, but it's a great way, like I said, to get your feet wet, sort of mingle with other people in the profession. And maybe it's something that could really benefit you and get you kick-started in the right direction. Now, when we talked about financial aid earlier, I do want to make sure that we're touching on student loans. There's a number of reasons I want to touch on it. As I said earlier, 71% of you are going to borrow loans, and there's nothing wrong with that. But also, we want to make sure to take some time to look over these student loans because we are experiencing some big changes that will be implemented starting July 1 of 2026. So I want to make sure we go through those. I want to make sure all of you understand those. But when it comes to borrowing wisely, it's not just student loans you have the option for, right? You don't just have the direct student loan program available to you. Some schools that you apply for financial aid to might have institutional loans. So they're going to have different interest rates, different repayment plans. We have the LDS and the PCL loan that I'll show you here in just a minute. Lower interest rate, but you know what? It also has a requirement, like a work requirement. So is that for you? Obviously, we have the direct unsub loan from the Department of Ed. Now, that interest rate changes from year to year. Hopefully, it'll go down for you. There's also private loans, and that's something we're going to touch on a little bit more here in a second. And then there's credit cards. Now, we put them credit cards at the top because credit cards are always the highest interest, right? So if you're going to borrow wisely. Part of borrowing wisely is to make sure that you're minimizing the debt that you have and you're able to manage it during medical school. You don't want to look at it like I'm just borrowing money to get through med school and I'll deal with it later. That is the worst way to look at this. Do it wisely. Think about a budget, put a budget together. Those are things you could do to really help yourself with this journey. We showed that $200,000 number earlier, that median number. Make it a goal to go in and get to graduate under that. That's what you should try to do. So there are some big changes coming up with student financial aid, and I wanted to touch on those with you all right now. So really the biggest change that's going to affect medical school students is the fact that there is no longer going to be a graduate plus loan. Okay. So as of right now, medical school students could borrow a certain amount of unsubsidized loan, and if you needed more, you could dip into the Graduate Plus loan, all through the direct lending program. As of July 1 of 2026, that is no longer an option for entering medical school students. They've also changed the amount that you could borrow per year. So next year, starting July 1 of 2026, you will be able to borrow $50,000 a year in the unsub loan program. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I'm not really sure of any medical school that's just $50,000 a year. So that's why we're talking about the importance of applying for financial aid, applying for scholarships, knowing what your options are, right? Because this is what we're looking at moving forward. A lot of students now and in the past, they did a FAFSA, they got the unsub loan, they got the plus loan, and that's where they got their monies if they didn't get scholarships. That's not going to be our case moving forward, right? So we want to be careful with this. We want to know what our borrowing limits are. So as of moving forward, you all are going to be eligible to borrow $50,000 in the unsubsidized loan program. Now, if that doesn't meet your needs, then that means you might likely have to dip into a private loan or explore institutional loans that are going to be available for all of you. So I just wanted to make sure we touched on that. I will absolutely be sure to touch on any other questions that you have, but that's the big changes. We no longer have a Grad Plus loan, and we have a minimum of a maximum of 50,000 a year in the unsub program. The other big program changes are with repayment plans. Now, this isn't something you all are going to have to be concerned with right now, but if I'm someone who's advising you on student loans and knowing what those terms are, I think you should know what your payment plans might look like, even if it's 4 to 5 years down the road. You want to make sure it's something that you're comfortable with. So, what they're doing is we're navigating over eventually to two plans: a standard, it's calling it a new standard right now, but a standard repayment plan, which are fixed payments every single month. They don't change, and it's really just based on what you borrowed. That's it. But the other plan is going to be the new repayment assistance plan. This is our RAP plan. This plan is based on your income. Now, I'm going to show you on just a moment how that breaks down. But the goal of this new legislation is to change things over into saying you have a standard payment plan and you have a repayment assistance plan based on your income. Now, there's a lot of those things we can get in the weeds about, but the AAMC FIRST program does have charts. We have resources. We have all sorts of things to tell you all of that. Again, not right now something you might want to do, but it's going to be out there for you. But that's the goal of this new legislation. When you're looking at these loans, you also want to make sure, we mentioned earlier, the PCL and the LDS loan. So I want to make sure all of you are aware of what these loans are. Now, everything about financial aid, everything about loans, it's really based on what your plans are. What are your financial goals? What are your financial plans? What do you plan to do as a specialty? Then these are things that you might not know right now, and that's perfectly fine. But it's always good to know where your options are, okay? So these are loans that are available. If you think about the primary care loan, obviously going into primary care, it gives you all of the eligibility information. If you look at LDS, those are loans you want to look at. Think about if you're pursuing one of those degrees, that might be something for you. But again, they do have terms that you want to be aware of, right? Unlike maybe the direct unsubsidized loan, you do have to sort of serve in a certain capacity
Okay, John.
in different places.
Welcome back.
So just always be aware of that. Know what the terms of those loans are. Every single time you will get offered a loan, look at the terms of those loans. There's also a Dreamers Graduate Loan Program. So for any of you who are a DACA student or a TPS immigration status, you might want to look into something like this. It is going to be very definitive about the criteria, letting you know how you need to be enrolled. And a lot of these things are pretty similar as far as enrollment status to the direct lending program. You have to be at least half time. You got to be in an eligible degree seeking program. You do have to pass a credit check, or those aren't, excuse me, those are not required. So there's a lot of great things out there, but I'm just going to keep stressing when you're looking at loans and when you're looking at your options, know every term of that loan before you sign on the dotted line. Even though we don't do that anymore, right? We do everything electronic, but just know what the terms are and know that it's something that's going to benefit you moving forward. Okay. Now, all of this goes into this slide here, prioritizing your loan knowledge. Keep track of what you borrow each year. Do not just borrow loans, ignore it, and think I'll take care of it when I'm graduating. Please don't do that. Meet with your financial aid team every year. I can guarantee you that every single financial aid administrator in this country will be fine with me saying that. They want you to sit down and talk to them about possible changes. They want you to talk to them about what your options are going to be. Only borrow what you need. Make sure you're running your numbers often where you can and keep track of those things each and every year. So I thought what we're doing differently this year is sort of looking at a medical school student's journey. I think it's kind of a good way of looking at how you're thinking about your finances, basically starting about now until you get through medical school. So let's just say our medical school student's name is Sarah. Now, when she entered medical school, she already had 25,000 in undergrad debt because a lot of us do, right? We already had a little bit of undergrad debt. We always have to remember that. You're not going to make payments on it while you're in school for the most part. As long as it's a federal direct loan, it's still deferred, but you're going to have to pay it when you get out of med school, right? So Sarah made sure to do the things she had to do, which is she applied for that fee assistance program. She was very fortunate. She got accepted to her number one medical school choice. So all things are starting to fall into place. She's done the application. She got accepted to her school. Now, here's what her next steps are. Notice my first bullet. Apply for financial aid. See how much money you can get to help you cover the cost of this education. Also, just think about again, no hidden cost. You got to move there, right? Whether it's a plane ticket, whether it's a drive, gas, whether it's rent, a deposit, you got to think about that stuff. And look what else I put down there. Look at the school's cost of attendance. Again, you know that you're going to have tuition and fees, but that cost of attendance are numbers put together by that financial aid team that are estimates, and they're pretty darn good estimates of what students in their first, second, third, and fourth year are going to pay in food, are going to pay in housing, are going to pay in books and supplies. All of that's on there. So these costs and these charges and these expenses should not be a surprise to you. So think about reviewing those things. Now, here's what Sarah should always do when she's thinking about borrowing, okay? So let's say in your first year, you only need $40,000 to cover the rest of your expenses. You got scholarships, you got some assistance, you only need 40 grand. Fantastic. But you know what? That second year is going to be a little longer. So you got to eat, you got to have a place to live. Your terms are going to be longer. So you're going to probably need to borrow a little bit more. And obviously the cost of things don't tend to go down, right? They tend to go up. So think about how you're going to borrow a little bit more. Your third year is going to be a little bit more because guess what? There comes your step exams, study materials, things of that nature. So you're going to need to borrow more. That fourth year is the one that you got to think about too. You got your residency interviews, you've got your relocation cost. And notice the red text here. This is where we're getting into you can only get 50,000 in the unsub loan moving forward. So if you need more than that, that means you may have to explore private loans. And again, I'm not telling you that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that you're doing something wrong, but this is just a reality of where we are right now with the student loan program. So I want to make sure all of you keep that in mind when you're doing the financial aid application process and you're thinking about the cost of these schools. Okay. And you can also see too, look, it's quite easy in 4 years to come up with $200,000 in debt, right? If you think 40,000 a year, oh, it's just 40 grand this year. I'm a medical school student. I'm going to be a physician. That's fantastic. But 200 comes pretty quick. So that's why we talk about borrowing wisely, borrow only what you need, and budgeting. When we talk about those private loans, those are going to be based on your credit. Now, this is something that all of you might not have thought you need to put as much focus on before, but you're kind of going to need to now. Okay. When you go out and apply for a private loan, they're going to look at your credit score. They're going to look at your credit history. This is what makes up your score. And I wanted all of you to have this chart so you see that. Those private loans are going to be credit based. They may require a cosigner. So you may want to go ahead and start speaking to a parent, a guardian, someone that might possibly co-sign for you because it may be a requirement. And what have I said 100 times? Know the terms of the loans. What are the interest rates? Do you have forbearance options, deferment? Are there any forgiveness provisions? So just be aware of all of that when you start to think about applying for private loans and what your other options are going to be. Now that Sarah's graduating, this is what she's going to focus on. She's going to focus on managing those finances as a resident. She's going to know what her rights and responsibilities are regarding her student loans. That's going to be really important because that's something she's going to have to start to focus on. She's going to want to gather and create a loan portfolio, and it's going to include those undergrad loans. And then she's going to explore the best repayment plan because that's what she wants to do, ensures that it fits into her budget and her financial goals. Now, let me briefly touch on your repayment plan options because I know that not all of you are going to borrow, but for those of you that do, and it's a decent ways off, I do want to let you know how these things are laid out. So, one of the tools that you're going to have access to throughout medical school is our MedLoans Organizer and Calculator. This is a tool that was developed by the AAMC for medical school students. You will have access to this from the time you start medical school until a good 10, 15 years into not into residency. I don't think that lasts that long, but 10 to 15 years after you graduate. So you're going to have access to this. This calculator will let you run some scenarios so you can see what your payments are going to look like. Now, let me show you how that works. All of your payment plans are either going to be traditional plans that are based on your debt, or they're going to be plans based on your income. Those are called IDR plans. This is how the calculator lays out all of that information for you. When you're starting to explore the best payment plan for you, you're going to want to know a few things. You're going to want to know how many years does it take to pay off the loans? What are my payments as a resident? What are my payments as an attending physician? And what is the total amount I pay on those loans? This calculator gives you all of those numbers. When we think about the slide earlier about borrowing 40,000 a year and how that might increase, you can project your borrowing levels after your first year. If you think, oh, I only needed 20,000 my first year, maybe I'm not going to graduate with 200, maybe I'm going to graduate with about 130,000. You can project those numbers. The calculator will give you what that is. It is up to you to decide, am I comfortable knowing I graduate with a certain level of debt and I pay that much at the end of the day? That's up to you how you decide that, okay? Now, also be aware of any forgiveness programs. I think we're all aware of public service loan forgiveness. That is a program from the Department of Education that will forgive your loans if you've met these criteria. It's completely forgiven and it's completely tax-free. Great program. Once you get closer to graduation, explore that. Also, if any of you are thinking about serving in the military, doing NIH, National Health Service Corps, there are so many different ways that you can get assistance with your student loans. Do not be embarrassed or hesitate to look at these options. This is a database we actually have for you at the AAMC where you can look into what all of those offers are. So let me just quickly go through some information we have on the FIRST program. So FIRST is Financial Information Resources, Services, and Tools. It's one of our big programs that we do in the Office of Student Financial Services. This is what our homepage looks like. You're going to see a number of different resources available to all of you. You're also going to notice over on the right-hand side, we have a little alerts box. If there's changes to the student loan program, repayment plans, anything that you need to know, we'll pop that up there. We'll give you relevant links, anything you need to do. You can sign up for a FIRST newsletter where we're going to let you know if there's any upcoming videos or webinars. So please definitely take advantage of this program. Again, everything you're going to see on this website is completely free. Nothing is hidden behind a paywall. As a medical school student, you got access to it. And so do dental schools. Everybody has access to all of this stuff. So take advantage of it. The first thing we have is our guide to money management and student loans. You can see we've broken it down into your stages of your medical school career. So when you go to any of those chapters, entering med school, continuing medical education, graduating, residency, they all have different information in them that's more relevant for you at that stage in your career. Okay. Throughout this guide, there will be links, there will be PDFs, there will be charts, there will be written advice. There's going to be links to the FIRST program, links to the Department of Education's website, all of it. This is something we keep updated on a regular basis every time we have to, obviously. So take advantage of this guide, use it as you progress through medical school. We also have a financial wellness program. Now, this is something all of you are going to have access to as well. For those of you who do want to focus on your financial health there in medical school, this has a great way of doing that. There's a tool where you can track your spending. You can set up a budget. You can assess your risk of identity theft. There's even online courses here. there's a dashboard that lets you know where you are in your progress and how you set up your financial goals. So it's there for you. You can sign up for it, use it as you see fit. There's tons of great things in there, helping you manage your money, keeping track of your credit, debt management, so many things. We also have a loan repayment, forgiveness, and scholarship database. So I showed all of you a slide earlier about all these different scholarships you can apply for. Guess what? Go here. It's on our website. You could put in here that you're looking for a scholarship. You could put in here what state you're from. You can look at what your funding source needs to be. And then it's going to list all of these things here for you. This example would be if you're a student and you live in Arizona and you go to school in Arizona. Arizona has a loan repayment program that is separate from the direct lending program. So look at all of those things. Break it down by where you're going to go to school, what your residency is, and it's going to show you any scholarship opportunities that you have, and if there's any differences in different state loan repayment plans. So again, a completely free database available at your fingertips. So go out there and take advantage of that, especially when you start looking for those outside scholarships and those opportunities. So that's where I'm going to end it with you today.